And we are on the air everywhere. This is WeatherBrains episode number 690. And you know what this is, the pre-show, that magical time of this program. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. This is for April 8th, 2019. And we are going to talk a little weather here. Regular show starts in about 10 minutes. If you're new to this, just move the little slider over about 10 or 15 minutes and we'll get this thing cranked up. This is only for those that watch on YouTube. This is not part of the regular audio podcast. And let's see if anybody joins the program tonight. I might be the only guy here. Everybody says, I'm going to watch the National Basketball Championship game tonight, Virginia and Texas Tech. In fact, I have that on the monitor right in front of me. And I might need to turn that off. That would be slightly distracting. In fact, I got all kind of distractions here. We have some active weather in my neck of the woods. We actually had 3 tornadoes around here this morning. And as we speak, I've got one county in the western part of my state under a severe thunderstorm warning for the possibility of hail. I don't think we have any tornadoes tonight, but then again, we really didn't think we'd have any tornadoes this morning, and we had 3. Little MCV, a mesoscale convective vortex, rotating through, producing those 3 tornadoes this morning. This was about 5:30 until 6:30 this morning in northeast Alabama. And oddly enough, Brian Peters was on the air working the morning shift. And I came on with him from my home studio. So Brian and I did a 2-man show. And that is all discombobulated because typically during tornadoes, I am in the studio. Brian is in the field in the chaser. But sometimes it happens. So that's just an exciting morning. Bill, talk to me, man. Say something. Because I've had a few. Uh-oh. Not so sure you're. Try it again.
My AirPods act like they are allergic to you.
I can hear you now, which is a good thing. And I had some weird audio issues last week here, but Audio Hijack Pro had an update, and I think that fixed the problem because the little utility we use to make the magic happen here is called Audio Hijack, and it was kind of one of those weird things where the Mac OS had an update. The audio started acting kind of funky, and then Audio Hijack had an update, and it seems to be okay now. So, Aubrey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good.
You can hear me good?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. You sound great.
My hair I'm a frizzy mess.
Show title right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's write that one. Well, we can't use the show titles in the pre-show because we haven't started the regular show. But that would be a great show title.
It's where all the creative juices flow.
I'm not getting the I guess I'm assuming you guys are starting this thing a little differently now, because I used to get James ringing on my phone, and now I have to go into Google Hangouts and actually click almost into everything before I actually see the shindig pop up.
No,
maybe it's Google.
My process, it's the same thing. This has always been a mystery for years. But no, I've invited you guys the same way. Google has just had a history of starting things and then they, shut them down and change things, and they need to just kind of stick with something and let it go for a while.
Yeah,
they shut down.
Nice.
They shut down Google Plus, and I had great hope because when that thing came out of the gate, it was like Facebook without the stupid. I mean, it really had some hope. There was some good engagement, some really good conversation. There were hardly any trolls. And it was just great, and then they just quit. They just killed it. And this platform, of course, is theoretically on YouTube now, but it's called Live Events. And this is the old Hangout. This originated. What we're using here was a Google Plus thing. And then they migrated it to YouTube, and I'm afraid they're going to kill this off.
Yeah, because this is a good platform.
Yeah, the nice thing about this, and there's no secret here. I mean, I don't have Switcher, and the way this works, whoever's talking goes full screen, and you can switch it manually if you want to, but typically you just let it switch it automatically, and it's just really nice, and it just works well. So hopefully they will let this ride for a while. But what do I know?
Hey, Alex.
Hello.
Hey, Alex.
Hail State. Hail State.
Absolutely.
So the women's basketball team just missed it again. Goodness. One of these years, State's going to get that national championship with women's basketball.
Well, or baseball. We got to win it in something eventually.
Yeah, baseball would be good. For those that have never been to a baseball game in Starkville, that is the greatest college venue for college baseball in the country. It's an amazing facility, just amazing. And they have a good team this year. They had a good team last year. Had a good ride. Jacob, can you hear us okay?
I sure can. I'm in the studio, though. We're doing some Facebook Live for some of those storms coming into West Alabama. So the chief is over there. He may be able to come on later, but he's going to do the show. So it may just be Alex, Jacob Riley, and myself.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we this was so that for those that don't know, our guests are in the adjacent market to the west of me, and we all have the same storm issue here. These are hailers; they're not tornado producers like what we had early this morning. Had a rude wake up call about. Well, actually, a wake up call. I mean, I was awake, and all of a sudden, a tornado warning. Boom! And boy, the SPC, they were on it, man.
They really
were on
were.
a roll.
Were they, what,
I mean,
20 minutes ahead of it with that?
Yeah,
MCD?
they put out a mesoscale discussion, MCD, and they drew a little bitty circle, and that's exactly where those things touch down. It was just really good. And
So were you at home, James? Were you doing your work
Yeah.
from home, or did you run up to the TV station?
just doing the standard stuff I do in the morning, writing a blog post and doing the video stuff. And so, and Brian Peters was on the air here. And Brian is not really used to doing tornado warning coverage in the studio, and especially by himself. And so I knew that he would appreciate a friend coming on with him. So Brian and I did wall-to-wall coverage. He was in the studio. I was in my home studio for about 35 minutes on the morning show. And then the thunderstorm moved up into Marshall County, which is the next market up from here, Huntsville. But I stayed on with him all the way till 7 o'clock. So I was basically on the morning show off and on from 5:30 until 7. So that's the reason all the regular products were late. And my buddy Brent, Mr. Promotion, I know you're on WeatherBrains. Can you do the 9 o'clock topicals for a live weather update? I figured that was, in fact, I probably have to. We anytime we have severe thunderstorm stuff, we have to kind of do little updates back there. So I might be slightly in and out here, but that's okay.
James, this morning, actually, I was doing the morning show. Our morning met Alex is on vacation right now. He went to the conference in Mobile, so they had me in this morning. I was actually watching you guys over there, so it was a fun little storm.
Yeah, that was. It kicked up a pretty good bit of damage. We're lucky that nobody got really hurt badly. There were some minor injuries. There was a guy that was in a camper.
Wow.
And that thing rolled, and he had some vertebrae in his back taken out, broken, but he's okay. He's going to live. But the timing of that and the fact that it really wasn't expected, there was no watch. That is a screaming reminder that everybody needs a weather radio. I bet you, I'm not a gambling man, but if I were a gambling man, I bet you maybe 2% of the people in my state have a weather radio. 2%. I think the penetration is that low. We've got a real problem with that. And again, the if you look at the face bag comments, I never heard the siren. Would we see to get a new siren? I'd never hear the siren. The sirens never went off. They get mad because they never heard a siren. It was like, duh, you're not going to hear one during a big thunderstorm at 4 a.m. And welcome to our television viewers. I'm getting cranky. I know we have some active weather on the western side of the state. And if you're watching radar, just hang tight. Once we get the show over with, you'll go right back to that. And let me just say up front, if by chance we have a tornado warning, that coverage will be on the digital weather channel. That is not likely and not expected. But again, the main threat with these storms on the western side of the state, it's from hail. I had a digital weather channel hater the other day sent me nasty email. Man.
Don't get this show off the air.
Well, no, it wasn't about this. It was about the radar stuff. But anyway, we'll talk later. Let's get this sucker started here. So let's hit the record buttons. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is WeatherBrains episode number 690, the mighty 690 for April 8th, 2019. Yes, the prime tornado season for Dixie Alley. Bill Murray, remember the mighty 690?
Oh my goodness. Dan Brennan, and Don Keith. And
Dan the music man, yeah.
And they not only played great music, they had weather wires. Joe Rumore, and they gave the Weather Service warnings verbatim. You had to love those guys.
This was a clear channel radio station, a 50,000 watt radio station in our market down here. And growing up, you just listened to that because you could pick it up almost anywhere. And they did have a weather wire. And I remember Joe Rumore would read those tornado warnings out of Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. He would get me whipped into a frenzy.
Yeah, he'd go and he would just open the teletype and it would be ding, 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 ding. And you knew it was going to be.
And Joe, and this guy did his show from his house. Yeah. So he had a NOAA weather wire teletype in his house. And that was just so odd. The mighty 690, it just hit me. But the Dan's Dusty Discs and top 5 at 5. Anyway, let's don't go into this rat hole. Aubrey, bring some common sense back to this. So,
hi guys.
What kind of crazy weather do you have tonight? Are you okay up there?
We had our first thunderstorm. I counted 6 lightning strikes today. It did not look very pretty. And, I only see the very, I would say, mid-upper third of a thunderstorm. So in the Shenandoah Valley, you guys would shake your heads at the views of thunderstorms that I have here. It's just, it's depressing. It's absolutely depressing. But we had some lightning here, so it's our first official storms of the season. Nothing severe. Everything stayed south and east. But in the Roanoke market, they actually had some hail, big 1-inch hail, and enough to shovel in some spots in the Roanoke market.
Wow, that's when you're shoveling hail. That's pretty impressive. Troy, when's the last time you shoveled some hail in Texas?
When's the last time I shoveled anything other than the obvious? Y'all are showing your age, though, James. Come on. Weather wire and all that. Bill.
Yeah, most people listen to this show,
Troy.
that they have never heard. They've never heard a teletype machine before. The joy of those things. There was something sexy about it.
He doesn't remember a day when that was the only way you got weather information was AM.
We need to do an old-fashioned weather show and show us young kids how it was done back in the day and the difficulties that you guys had walking to work uphill both ways barefoot. And
it was worse than that. It was worse than that.
I know, but I want to know the ways that you guys had to do and stuff. Educate me.
I used to hang out at the National Weather Service on Sunday and take their trash and put it in the trunk of my car and carry it home.
Yeah. If I could get this camera out of here, I would show you the two WeatherWire machines, including one of the old ones you're talking about, James, sitting across the room. I keep here. Yeah.
I've got one in my.
I could tell by the mechanical noise those things made if there was about to be a tornado warning.
Oh, yeah.
The circuit would be interrupted, and it would be coming down from cells or something interrupted the normal circuit, and just the mechanical noise. You knew it was a tornado warning, and you know, in a way, I kind of miss those days. There's something about opening that door and those teletype machines. It was almost sexy or something. I mean,
yeah, my dream, James, is to hook your Twitter feed to my teletype.
And that's a show title.
That's a show title right there.
All right. But Bill, bring in our guests here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, James, tonight we're really excited to have Jacob Dickey, Alex Puckett, and Jacob Riley, who are meteorologists at WCBI in Columbus, Mississippi. They've got weather tonight like we share on our western border here, but we thought we'd talk about something that happened to them a few weeks ago. So, Alex, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you so much, Bill.
So you grew up in Childersburg, huh, Alex?
I did. I grew up in Childersburg, Alabama, so I watched a lot of James Spann growing up.
Yeah.
Look, nobody from Childersburg talks like that. I'm just saying now. You got no Talladega County twang. The Seaburg people got a distinct accent like people from Butler County, where I'm from. But I guess you lose it after a while going to these academia settings where you have to talk with this, neutral accent.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. It's funny. I'll talk to people who, if I'm home, people who I don't know will tell me they don't think I'm from there. But then I go somewhere else in the country and they comment on my Southern accent. So I can't win.
Yeah, you should have heard it in Ireland. They had a field day with my accent in Ireland. There's no question about it.
I bet they did.
that was a lot of fun. Jacob Riley, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bill.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. I see you got the alumni there behind you all over the country.
Yeah, I'm actually over at State tonight. I'm not there at CBI helping Jacob and Keith out, but I'm up here in the what we like to call the climate lab at Mississippi State. So this is where we do all of our dirty work.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you grew up in
Hillman Hall.
Yes, sir.
And you grew up in Northeast Texas, huh, Jacob?
Yes, sir. I sure did. Just south of Texarkana, Texas, in a little town called Atlanta. A lot smaller than Atlanta, Georgia.
A lot less traffic, I bet.
Yes, thankfully.
So there was an event that helped get you into meteorology, I understand.
Yes, sir. Me and my dad, we always have a lot of wet microbursts during the summers out there, and we watched one come through and just watched it put down a lot of wind, knocked a couple of trees down, one of which even hit our home. And just to see the power of the storm really sparked my interest in it, and that's what's put me here today.
So Jacob Dickey, welcome to the show.
Oh, he's muted.
He's busy. He's got Facebook Live going on in the background there. So,
he's kind of a big deal. He's talking on broadcast television.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob, y'all got some weather going in the background, huh? Yeah. All right. Well, you join in as you can. So, who wants to start it out? Who wants to tell us a little bit about that day? Take us back and walk us through the meteorology of the situation and where we're at. Jacob, you want to take a shot at it? Jacob Riley?
Jacob Riley, sure. Yeah. So that was actually my first ever severe weather event to be on air for. So it was definitely just kind of get thrown in there and get ready for a type of event for me. But I remember coming in that day, our wind setup wasn't exactly ideal for tornadic development, but we were watching it. We knew the potential was there. And just watching that storm coming out of Oktibbeha County, out of the Starkville area as it crossed over into Lowndes, you saw it just begin to kind of take that hook echo shape on it, that dog leg type look to it. And that's whenever we received our first storm report there near the Crawford community, had some sheet metal on Highway 45 there. And we had a couple of our interns, Miss Kendall Smith and Paige DeVee. They were there with us too, doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. And they were running back and forth to me. Alex and Keith were on air with the viewers, and they brought that report over to me. And I felt it kind of hit me in the pit of my stomach, and I was like, this is it. This is like first time on air. There's damage being reported, so like this is going to be a pretty major storm as it begins to move into the Columbus area. So we were watching it, and we had another report come in of a confirmed tornado near the 45 exit just on the outside of Columbus. And that's when Alex Puckett there began to turn the camera back to our south and west. And that's whenever we began to see that rotating, the funnel cloud begin to drop out of the clouds. And right whenever we saw that, we knew it was time to go. So we all got up, went to the basement, and I feel like our team did a really good job. It was definitely an awesome first-time experience for me for the on-air aspect during severe weather coverage, and the first really major tornado that I've seen. That was actually the first tornado I've ever seen in my entire life. So I kind of just killed all of the birds there with one stone there on the 23rd. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience, and definitely a very humbling experience, one that I'm very thankful for, and I've learned a lot from it and look forward to apply that in my career further down the line for sure.
So Alex, you were running the camera. Jacob said, what were you thinking when you looked back to the southwest with your camera and saw what was going on?
Well, I think for everybody who's done live tornado coverage on television before, you tend to get sort of laser focused sometimes. So when we had the warning issued, it's sort of in the back of your mind that, hey, this storm is probably, if it holds together, is going to approach Columbus. The business end's going to be approaching downtown. But I think until I turned that camera a little further southwest and we actually saw the funnel, it didn't hit me that, like, oh, we're actually in a really bad spot right now. And we're also probably going to need to head to the basement pretty soon. But yeah, we moved that camera southwest, and you could immediately see a wall cloud. You could see a funnel. And of course, the nature of East Mississippi, you've got trees. And of course, it being Columbus, you've got some buildings blocking the view of the ground. But you could tell the funnel was relatively low, probably at least halfway down. And so, there was obviously some immediate concern there that there could either be a tornado occurring or it was about to drop down. And unfortunately, it did touch down. Thankfully, it missed the station, but it was very, very close. Too close for comfort.
So, Alex, how much time did you have between the time you identified that it really was a tornado and the time that you had to evacuate the set?
Well, of course, you want to cut that as close as you can because you have a responsibility to your viewers to get information out as long as you possibly can. We were probably, and this is just a rough estimate, we probably had that camera shot for a minute, 90 seconds maybe. At that point, after that, we bailed. Keith made the call to, okay, let's run to the basement. And then about 20, 25 seconds after that, we lost signal. Going out. So the last shot from WCPI as far as on-air television coverage, that was us running to the basement and then a complete blackout of the signal 20 seconds later. So I think I probably speak for everyone on the weather team in that our phones started to blow up very quickly.
So you literally, did you have any signal going over the air, or did you lose the transmitter?
What we did was we lost power, and unfortunately our generator failed. So we had no signal going out, which was not good. So we were in the basement and we knew the power wasn't on, so we knew we weren't going out, but we didn't know exactly what the problem was until probably 30 minutes or so later, well after we'd come back up and kind of figured out that it was a generator failure was the issue.
But Jacob Dickey, you had Facebook Live going, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was actually out in the field. I don't know what's been said about me or where I was, but
they talk terribly about you.
I figure.
Yeah, they said you were a lazy bum. You didn't come into work that day, and yeah.
Well, I don't know, James. I was an intern for you, so you must be picking bad ones, then, huh?
That could be a whole different show right there, Jacob.
Yeah,
it really
could be.
Exactly, yeah.
Was there any hazing involved, Jacob? I need to know.
No, actually, on my first day, I got to talk with Megan Thomas a lot, and Megan and I actually both have a hearing aid, so we really got to talk about that and what it's like in the business to have kind of that similar side of things, which was really cool. And it was a really great first day. I will say this, on my application, actually, there was a typo in there. And the chief producer, she actually talked to me. She's like, hey, look at this, but we thought we'd let you come anyway. So I got real lucky to learn under James Spann and Megan Thomas and Charles Daniel, and as well as Brian. So it was a really great experience. But yeah, so no hazing. That's a good thing.
I'm surprised, James. I think y'all hazed Ginger, didn't you, James? Made her eat Dreamland ribs or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we made her eat some ribs and drink a Dr. Pepper.
That doesn't sound too bad.
No, I'm liking that, man.
So you were an intern for Span. Talk about your career a little bit, Jacob. How it unfolded and evolved and got you to where you are today.
Sure. So I grew up loving the weather. I was a 90s Weather Channel baby, the golden days of the Weather Channel. When I was 2.5, I would watch the Weather Channel. It was not cartoons or anything of that sort. And just loved that side of things. Growing up, I always would ask my dad if we could go out to the edge of town and watch the storms come by. And he would always say, your mom will say no. And one day I said, well, did you ask her? And so we ended up asking Mom. And Mom said yes. And I think that might be one of her biggest regrets to this day, because we've done lots of chasing since then. And so growing up with Dad until I was 16, once I got my license, it was doing some spotting. I got my first internship in undergrad when I was at the University of Illinois. I was actually an agriculture major in undergrad. And once I finished up there, I interned with WCIA 3 News in Champaign-Urbana under Derek Faber and Jack Erfin. And I actually was on my way to being a high school science teacher. And I sat down to sign a contract. Something told me, don't do it. And I think that was the good Lord saying, I've got something better for you. So I ended up on a whim, moved to Oklahoma. I didn't have an internship. I had a room that I was renting from a friend. And Damon Lane at KOCO actually was he was the only meteorologist out of all of the Tulsa and all of the OKC markets to reply back to me. So I got a chance to intern with him in the spring semester and the summer semester out there. And that experience, I think, really sealed the deal for me as far as severe weather coverage and field coverage and what that looks like. And, of course, learned a lot from that market. And then after that, moved to grad school at Mississippi State and interned my first semester with James San at ABC 30 through 40. And following that, then started with weekends here at WCBI in Columbus. And I've been here for a little over 2 years now. So I've loved all the way. All 3 internships offered great experiences and differing experiences and really helped to where I am now.
What size market is WCBI, guys? I think we're market
130. I was just say 130. We're somewhere in the 130s.
Yeah, Troy, it looks like these guys have got a real commitment to weather coverage, though. I mean, this is a good looking team. We only have what 3/4 of you guys. Are there anybody else? Is there anybody else on the team, or is this the whole group?
Well, I was gonna say Keith, our chief, is obviously not here, but this is us.
Yeah,
Wow.
Chief's in the other room in the studio right now. They're doing some Facebook Live, and we're a CBS affiliate, so we got the national championship game for basketball. And so he's in there doing the shows, and then we are doing some cut-ins for hail and whatnot in the national breaks and blowing out the commercials to let viewers know. So he's in there busy with that, but he wishes he could be here. He might sneak on later. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I hope he can. So take us back to that day. You were out in the field, right, Jacob? You said so. Talk about your experiences chasing the storm that day.
Yeah, one thing that when I came to WCBI is I learned a lot from Oklahoma City as well as with Birmingham, is the social science and how viewers look at radar and won't take action, but when they see things and they see something on radar, or see something on TV, even if it's just damage, that I think takes the coverage up to the next level. And that's something that I really was pushing that I wanted to do here. And so we've been building our chasing up, our field coverage up, and working with our sky cams and MDOT cameras and whatnot, so we can show people in the field what's actually happening. And so far this year, we've had actually 3 different tornado warnings in Columbus. The first one, the one we're here for. And all of those, I think we've done a great job in the field of showing viewers what's happening and had good feedback and good results with people taking action. I did a little bit of driving around and whatnot, texting with the chief, texting with Alex, texting with folks back in the studio where they want me. And they sent me down towards Choctaw County to Ackerman. We had a big hailstorm that was coming up there down Highway 12. So we kind of bounced down there and then bounced to the south a little bit, ended up in Louisville and was heading east to Macon. And I got to Macon, Mississippi, which is south of Columbus by about a half an hour. And there was a supercell down near Sugarlock, and that was racing up towards Pickens County. And then we had the Columbus tornado. And I actually texted Alex, and I said, where do you want me to go? He said, stay south. So I stayed south in that. And about the same time that the storm was passing over me in Sugarlock, over 45, real grungy-looking wall cloud, I was able to hear the radio coverage at the same time of what's going on up north. And and talking with production on the phone and trying to get situated. It turned very chaotic very quickly. And once the correlation coefficient dropped that debris signature, I got real worried. I got really worried about what was happening. And now we know that, of course, our station missed it by a few blocks. But at the time, it looked like it was a direct strike. And it also looked very much like I couldn't get a hold of anyone in the station. Well, our basement has no cell service down there. That's all it was. But there was about a 15-minute window of, oh crap, this is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just don't know what happened. It's a frightening feeling.
Yeah. For reference, I've got here up on the. I hope you guys can see this in the desktop share. This is the cell that Jacob was on. It's this really mean-looking one that was moving into Noxubee County, and at the same time, this was heading into Columbus here. So that was the situation. And what the reason we kept him south was just before. That storm the storm that ended up hitting Columbus didn't look impressive. It was a severe warm storm that was moving out of Oktibbeha County, and I tend to think what happened was it hit an instability gradient, and that helped it sort of organize, but it really didn't have any sort of supercellular characteristics moving out of Oktibbeha County, but sort of rapidly wrapped up. But at that point, that Noxubee cell was sort of the storm that was all alone, all by itself, had unimpeded inflow, and looked like at that point was the better storm to stay on. So I gave Jacob some bad advice, I guess, is the
I think you were just trying to keep him out of the glory there, Alex.
Yeah, we joke that because Alex and I always joke, he's like, well, we don't need you in the field anymore. Our Skycam gets the tornadoes. And so it's kind of the running joke from that. But I think looking back, and Alex, I know has always been this way, I was a little like, going south was the right option. There was actually a moment where we had a triple box. It was the Skycam, Keith was on air, and then my feed was out in the field, and you could see the grungy wall cloud coming towards 45 right before the tornado hit. And so I think with that, it turned out really well on air, maybe as much as I would have liked to have been north and not had to deal with the unknowingness. I do think we made the right decision, and hats off to Alex for sending me south and keeping me out of the fun.
So Alex, who were you texting as you made your way to the basement during the evacuation?
As you'd expect, I was texting my mother to let her know that we were going to a safe place. She was a little bit rattled, I guess would be the nice way to put it. She was a little concerned. Apparently, she had been watching she was in Birmingham, and she was watching a movie and at the theater, and left the theater and was blowing up my cell phone. So I was trying to reassure her that I was going to be okay.
Well, you got to take care of those moms. That's for
absolutely
sure. That's really cool. So, what else? What have y'all learned from this situation that you'll use in future events, guys? Who wants to start?
I think you've got to, I think, be as situationally aware as possible. And again, I think I briefly thought about when the warning was first issued, when we first got that tornado warning. It was about 4:55, I think, in the afternoon. Your initial thought is, the towns that this thing's going to approach, and I did notice briefly that, okay, Columbus is in the path if it can hold together. If it does tighten up, Columbus would be in the path, but it really doesn't hit you until it didn't hit me until we looked at Skycam that we're actually in danger ourselves, and so I think hopefully this doesn't happen to me again. But if it does, recognizing that we do need to make sure that we're aware of the danger that we're under. Our job is to sort of disseminate that information as best we can, but also we got to take care of ourselves too.
Troy Kimmel, did you ever find yourself in the path of a tornado like this when you're on air?
No, I didn't. But one thing I want to talk or ask the guys about is we have so many people that are watching WeatherBrains out in the plains and all over the country for that matter. what would you say to people, guys, that are sitting there, in places where you can see tornadoes 20 miles away, and you're sitting in Dixie Alley where we're undergoing this big research project now, where you're lucky if you see a tornado a block away. These are entirely different things. And I was fortunate enough to be with y'all a couple of weeks ago, along with Aubrey at the conference, a great conference down at Mississippi State, and great presentations. But these are not everyone else's tornadoes. These tornadoes in the South are different. And I have a feeling y'all have that feel for that. I mean, these are not the ones where, in Oklahoma, there are 3 trees and 4 hills. And you can see things like this. These Mississippi, Alabama tornadoes are not like that.
Well, and even for us, I mean, our sky cam was essentially a stone's throw away from this tornado. Yeah. We were not able to ever definitively confirm on air that it was a tornado. We didn't have any ground truth. We had a view of the funnel. That was it. And it touched down on air based on what I can sort of piece together from the radar data, from the Weather Service survey, and from the time that we had that funnel on camera. I tend to think that it touched down on our sky cam. We couldn't tell anybody definitively that's a tornado. Now, we told folks, we certainly tried to pass along that it could be, and that it was at least a funnel cloud that could very quickly become a tornado, but we didn't have any definitive proof that it was. And quite frankly, the first definitive proof we got was when our power was knocked off, that was a pretty good sign that was actually down. Until then, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So James, go ahead, Jake.
Oh, sure. I think too is for myself when I was in Oklahoma interning at KOCO, saw a lot of tornadoes and a lot different story there. Their viewers get to see those tornadoes live on air. And my first few semesters here, when storms are coming through, a whole different ballgame. You can't see nothing out there on the roadways. And the other thing too is you have to consider if you're on roads where it's lined with trees, even the wind from storms can knock those trees down. So it's just a whole different ballgame of how we do our field coverage. We're very aware that we're not going down these back and side roads to get that tornado like chasers in Oklahoma. And even when I lived in Illinois, we could do that there. You could see for miles. We're not going to make that risk. We're going to stay on our main roads, Highway 82, 45, the interstates, all of that to hopefully see something, and then count on our sky cams to help fill in the gaps a little bit. And as much as I enjoy Oklahoma and how much frustrating it can be being in Mississippi and Alabama when you hope to see a tornado and you get a 30-second window, I still think that being in the field adds so much to our coverage for our viewers and helps out with them. So, yeah.
But don't you agree that chasing inherently, being someone that is native Texan but grew up in North Mississippi, Northeast Mississippi, it's inherently a more dangerous business up there?
It really is a more dangerous business here, and I don't think people fully realize that. In Illinois, growing up, I was blessed with a gridded road network. Every mile, the road east-west and north-south. And here in the South, you go down a road, and it might take a 180 loop and then go around the tree and down the river and over the waterfall and past the rock. It winds everywhere, and it's not something you want to be caught on trying to wind your way out of a tornado when something's coming at you at speeds sometimes double what they see in Oklahoma in the dry lines. We get storms coming through 50, 60 mile an hour, and that's highway speeds. And that could be really an unsettling and scary feeling.
And I'll add to that, Jacob, that I think for someone like you, again, you typically stick with the main roads. And another thing that you tend to do, and it's hard for someone who doesn't live and chase very locally or regionally to know, there's always going to be some spots in a couple of different places where you may have a clearing and you'll have some views. And Jacob knows the area. He knows where those spots are, where he can sort of park it and sort of let the storm come to him and try and get a view of it. If you don't know with pretty good detail the kind of terrain that you're chasing in here in Dixie Alley, you can get yourself in a really bad spot real quick. You don't want to end up in something like the Noxubee Wildlife Refuge or the Talladega National Forest trying to find a tornado, because you're not going to see it before the pine trees come down on you.
Yeah.
And I think, too, the best part about that also is, I always joke, I want to be out there a few hours early to catch the storms. Not only in the local roads, you're finding the best food out there. The gas station food. There's some good food around here. I tell you what, I'm surprised I haven't put on 50 pounds.
So what's the equivalent of an Allsup's burrito in Northeast Mississippi?
Okay, Okay, let's see. You said what kind of bridge? Alex might know.
I know you got to mention One Stop Sweet Tea, right?
Well, yeah. So my go-to stops is I head west on 82. The gas station in Mathiston, Mississippi. There's a 4-way stop there on 82. It's the Exxon on the corner, the southwest corner, and they'll cook you up a good honey biscuit and some fried chicken. Keep going to Stewart's One Stop, or Nails One Stop in Stewart. That's a small little town. Drive-by gas station. Best sweet tea, great steaks Friday, Saturday night. Go to the tracks in Winona. Best hamburger in Amory is Bill's Hamburgers. There's all kinds of little places. Good barbecue place in New Albany off the highway there, off of I-22.
Jacob never brings any of this stuff back to the studio. I'm just going to let you know right now.
There's never any leftovers.
I think one time I did bring back a half-eaten donut from the bakery in Brooksville. But
so explain this phenomenon of a dough burger to me. Jacob Riley, can you explain me the purpose and composition of a dough burger?
A dough burger? I honestly have no clue.
You've never been into one of these things yet. I bet our field reporter has.
I've heard of slug burger.
Is this the donut hamburger?
Oh, slug burger. Okay, good. All right, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Slug burger. Right.
There's a place up in Corinth that makes it, and if I remember right, oh man, I can't remember what they put in it, but they are good. They are really good. It's a mixture of stuff.
Thank you for listening to Burger Brains this week.
You can't talk about Northeast Mississippi without.
So guys, tell me on this coverage of that storm, what did you do right and what did you do wrong?
I remember going back and looking at it. Just so happened, based on the way what production could get up on the screen for us and get what sources they could get pulled up at the right time, that I was in front of the Skycam when the tornado was coming in. And I can remember, mentioning, hey, we've got a funnel cloud. It's at least a funnel cloud. And for about that 60, 80, 90 seconds there, I don't think I ever said the word tornado. Now, we were making clear to our audience that there was danger there, that there was, I think there was, we had communicated that there very well could be a tornado there. I wish if I could go back, I would have added, hey, this is at least a funnel cloud, and it could be a tornado, or it's likely a tornado. I just never took that extra half a sentence there. If I go back and change that, I would. Again, I still think we did a good job, but I can remember going back and watching that and watching it back the second or third time, kind of kicking myself and saying, man, I wish I'd said that.
Yeah, look, for any time you're live doing this stuff, you're going to do something right, you're going to do something wrong. I mean, everybody, me, everybody on this show. I mean, that, and what the reason I like to ask that question is to go back and learn from other mistakes, and also at the same time look at the good things that people do, and to make us all better. We have to kind of sharpen each other up a little bit here. So I like to hear stories of what went right and what went wrong. Now, the generator situation, at what point did the power go out and you guys go off the air? Was it right when it was in downtown Columbus?
Yeah, we cut it really close. So if you go back and watch the videos on YouTube, when we go down to the basement, we're on air for about 20 more seconds. And after that, we lose power. So we actually cut it about as close as we could cut it without getting too hairy. So that was it was very quickly after we abandoned the studio.
Yeah, we had just made it out of the studio. We were going down to the basement with our interns, and as soon as we opened the basement door, we just heard all the lights went off and everybody started headed downstairs. And as we were running around the corner to go towards the basement, I glanced out in the parking lot, and of course the tornado was only 2 or 3 blocks away from the station. But walking out, you could see the car starting to wobble a little bit, and after it had already passed, I actually went out in the parking lot, and my vehicle, the bumper had been removed off the front of it once before, but I went outside and it was actually completely removed off of my car up against the side of the building. So to say we cut it close is a bit of an understatement. We made it down right as the worst was moving overhead.
And, I think one thing that we often don't get involved with, and I'm kind of guilty of this, is working with the engineering staff at these television stations, because generator failure is not good. And what I am very guilty is not reminding our people here, we got to run these generators at least once a month. Yeah. The generator at the studio, the generator at all of our transmitter sites, and we've got a very complicated infrastructure here. and all it takes is for one to fail. Did they ever figure out what happened with that thing?
I know they got it back up and working. I don't know exactly what the issue was, but it's working now. So
yeah, but again, just let that be a lesson to all of us, is that we need to remind the engineers as part of our job, hey, guys, when we get some rough weather here, there's a good chance that power is going out. We've got to be sure that these generators work and that they're tested and that there's adequate fuel and everything else. And I think part of that's on our back to remind those guys, because we're all busy and there's not enough engineers anymore. There's not enough weather people anymore that, hey, let's check these things.
And the week after the Columbus tornado, we actually had, that very next Saturday, we had another severe system move through, and our engineers hadn't quite got the generator fixed just yet. And we had a lightning strike right near the station that hit our power. So me, Keith, and Alex were at the station again, and we had a power outage for about an hour. Luckily, we didn't have any active warnings in our area, but during that time, we were stressed out to the max. We actually had to pull up good old GR Analyst 2 there on my PC, and if worst came to worst, we were just going to go with that. Luckily, that didn't happen, and by the third tornado warning, they had the generator fixed, so if anything were to have happened, we were good to go, but thankfully, we were spared the other two events there.
Jacob, how long, all these events kind of end up running together for, how was that? That was maybe a little more than a week later, right?
Yeah, I think you are right, Alex. Yeah, we had the Saturday of the Columbus tornado, then we had another event, but I think it was in the middle of the week. And then we had another weekend event. Yeah, it was one after another.
A lot happened. The weekend after, we were concerned, but that's when Beauregard got hit, and then that was that. Then following that, March 9th and March 14th we had, and that was when Mississippi State was on spring break. So we've had a long spring already, and so.
So how do you guys handle social media during severe weather, like on a day like that? Do you divvy it up? Does everybody have individual accounts? How does that work?
We try to centralize it on our WCBI weather Facebook page, the Twitter page, things like that. And then for each of our personal accounts, we'll share from that sort of central account as we can, just sort of make it a little bit simpler and more streamlined for us. And that was the account that we sort of prioritized when we came back up from the basement afterwards. We had to continue storm coverage somehow because we still had active tornado warnings in Lowndes County and then over into Lamar County in West Alabama. So we pulled up Facebook Live, and then someone else pulled up Radar Scope on their phone, and Keith pulled it up on his Mac. And so someone was pointing. Actually, I was pointing at my cell phone with Facebook Live at Keith's Mac, and he was pointing things out on Radar Scope. Not exactly the highest tech and sexiest way to do tornado coverage, but we had to make it work for a little while.
Yeah, I was out in the field having pizza.
Do you guys use Instagram or Snapchat at all for pushing warnings to different demographic segments?
We use Instagram generally before an event to try and pull the awareness out. We don't typically push warnings to Instagram. We don't have a Snapchat.
Well, why not?
So, personal social media, I have my Instagram and my Snapchat open to viewers. But as far as the warning part goes, usually it's just, hey, heads up, there's a threat today, and kind of direct them where there's always room for improvement in social media, and social media is always changing. So I think in our market is a very heavy Facebook market. Twitter does okay, but our viewers our viewers that are core are Facebook and using that. We still use Twitter, and we still will put threats and whatnot on Instagram to raise awareness. But with small staffs and thin budget, I guess would be the way to say it, prioritizing and doing coverage the best, we push out our mobile app and use that and really make sure that's well aware and try and reach those. We do a lot of school visits to fill in for that social media gap in Snapchat and whatnot. But Facebook, I think, is the primary target for our viewers, and I think we could probably agree with that.
Do you think that in your market, people mostly rely on television or social media during severe weather to get information?
I think it's still television.
I think so too.
I really do. I think it's still a TV market. I think one of the things we can do one of the main things we do during severe weather coverage is we start a Facebook live stream. So when we're on air, we've got Facebook Live running so people can watch us as we're doing coverage. I think that does two things for us. Either number one, someone isn't already aware we're on television. They might see that if they're scrolling Facebook, and then they'll switch to TV. And then there'll be a few folks that maybe aren't able to get television, power went out or something, and they'll watch the Facebook stream. But I tend to think most folks still watch us on television during severe weather coverage.
We have noticed.
Go ahead. No.
We have noticed before a lot of our viewers and a lot of in Northeast Mississippi, a very low income rural area. A lot of these, people in back roads during severe weather, they'll lose their TV signal, and that's something that we fight. We have radio simulcasting, and that's been helpful for us. We always talk about that, and we've got a good partnership with the radio stations in town and getting our coverage out and pushing that on the app too. But even that, the app is something that not everyone has a smartphone that they can use. So really, I totally agree. TV's there, but I can't forget about radio as well.
Yeah. Well, I've got a question for all of you. You walked. I mean, this is a Saturday. I think it was a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
Saturday afternoon or evening. Y'all walked the city of Columbus. At least you got them into the tornado warning. You did that. You're the main station serving Columbus. What has been the public response? What have y'all heard from your viewers and the people that watch you every day about that Saturday afternoon?
Overwhelming.
It's been all positive. I have not heard any negative comments.
You got no haters? You got to have one hater. Come on.
Well,
I set James up, y'all. I set James up.
Well, so James,
I'll send you some of my haters if you don't have any.
we lucked out in that. So it was a Saturday in the late afternoon, early evening. So we don't have any sort of traditional primetime programming. We had 2 basketball games that were going on CBS that day. Mm-hmm. And the first one was Kentucky-Auburn. So we had SEC interest there. That game ended before we had to interrupt the second basketball game with that, which I think was a Big Ten game. So we really, in some ways, lucked out there on the TV side in that I tend to think if we were interrupting Kentucky-Auburn, we would have had some not so nice emails and phone calls. But at least from the email and Facebook side and stuff like that on social media, we didn't get any negative reaction.
What if it'd been Mississippi State and Kentucky? That would have been a different
yeah. And they would have burned the building down with that.
We actually carried. I will say, we're not immune. We have gotten emails before, hey, get off the TV. We get that. But I think once the TV went off the air and the damage became evident, from that point on, I think everything was very positive. Viewers were really, thankful and understood the severity of it. Oh, they went off the air and they're black. I need to, their screen is black. I need to take shelter. I think that sent a message in a way to people in Columbus. And I think too, even looking back at that, not only did we handle the coverage well during and after that, but I guess maybe what I'm thinking is for viewers is we've been victimized enough in Northeast Mississippi and West Alabama, and we get enough bad tornadoes where people around here overall, they know when we mean business, we mean business. And our station's done a good job of not cutting in and covering up shows for severe thunderstorm warnings. When we cut in, we mean there's severe storms that are damaging and a danger to life and property. So we've set that precedent before with our viewers on that. And I really think too, probably, if we want to talk about haters, we got all that taken care of with the missed snow event that we all.
You're rubbing salt in some wounds right now, Jacob.
So let me chase a rabbit now. So you talked about when you're on TV, it's serious. Do you guys do this thing where you declare a weather emergency, code red, storm alert, first warning, stick your head between your legs day? I mean, do you guys do this like all these other TV stations?
Jacob, I'm sorry, James, we are blessed in that we don't have consultants sticking their fingers in the weather department at WCBI. Our management and our station group allows our weather team sort of autonomy. So we do not get into that. We explain to folks if there's bad weather coming, when it's going to be and where it's going to be and what day it's going to be, but we don't issue any sort of special storm alert, first alert weather days. I'm here and I'm not going to call any names out or anything, but I'm here in the Mobile television market right now. And I woke up one morning before the CCAPS conference, and one of the stations here had a particularly interesting type of weather day. I'm not going to go into too much detail with it because I don't.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Nobody's
watching
listening to this. Go
silly
ahead. No.
Well, they had a code red weather day.
Code
Down,
red.
Code red. And I suggested that they needed to go ahead and get Mountain Dew as a sponsorship.
I was going to say that's
so you could have
exactly
Mountain Dew.
Exactly.
You could get the gas stations down here to, it's a code red weather day is 10% off all the Mountain Dew products.
Oh my gosh.
And so people say, what's the problem with this? So, here's the problem. I mean, they declare weather emergency days when there's fog, when there might be some thunder and lightning, if it rains a little bit. I mean, and obviously the consultants are telling these guys to do this. And I'm not faulting the meteorologists. They have to. In fact, you know what? One day I might have to. I'm blessed too. I don't do that. I don't like it. What it does, it just numbs people. It desensitizes people. Fatigue. They've heard enough of this hype, constant. DEFCON 5 code emergency weather day today. Tune in today at 5 to find out how you will die. This is insane.
I have no idea. What does it mean?
I don't know what it means. And what it means to the consultants is that they think they're going to get a bump in the ratings, the television news ratings at in the early evening newscast or the morning newscast or whatever. And again, people are going to get burned out on this. It's going to be a total cry wolf. But another thing they start doing now, they'll start doing wall to wall when there's nothing going on. Leading into their early evening newscast. I mean, there's no severe weather. There might be a thunderstorm somewhere, but partly sunny. They go Waldo. They just cut off the programming for 30 minutes and do weather, hyping up something that doesn't even exist in this constant stream of insane hyperbole. It's going to numb people where they won't listen when we really need to hit it hard. So,
well, James,
guys,
right.
You're saying it's going to numb people. It's already doing it, James. We're already there. We're already that bridge we've already crossed. So
yeah,
and it's a pretty dangerous bridge when you think about it too. The fact that this happens over and over and over again. So like whenever we do have these smaller, weaker systems that move through, and we're talking about how severe it could be, or we do these different meters that consultants want us to do. These schools close for the possibility of tornadoes or snow, and then it doesn't come to fruition. So the canceling school, it creates a trust issue between the meteorologist and the public, and that could be potentially deadly down the line if it continues at the rate it has.
Let me ask.
We had them closing early today in my market, and there was no need to do that. And I won't even chase that rabbit.
I've got a question. This Texan has a question for you, has a question for our friends from Columbus there. And I recall the Tupelo, Mississippi tornado a number of years ago. I've never heard James, you talk. Is it a good idea to close school and send kids home as latchkey kids when their parents may or may not be at home? Aren't they in most cases safer being in schools and in that building and having a plan? Most people at home have a plan.
I think you've answered that question yourself.
Listen, and again, every system is different. Every system is different, but in many of the rural systems, if you close schools, you're going to send kids home by themselves to a trailer, mobile home, manufactured home, whatever you're supposed to call it. Well, and you're sending them from a place where you've got good, safe shelter to a death trap, to a total death trap. And my position is if you start closing the schools, then at least leave some of them in the system open so kids that would be going home to mobile homes can stay with teachers and people that can supervise them. Don't just shut down and send everybody home. But I'm afraid we're doing that. And part of that stems back to a tornado in Enterprise, Alabama, March 1st, 2007. When the national media came down here and mocked the school system for not closing, and there was some loss of life at Enterprise High School. The truth is These nitwits from New York have no earthly idea what they're talking about. It would be like sending me to New York City to critique the Metropolitan Opera. I don't know anything about that. They know nothing about this story. The truth is, if they would have sent those kids home instead of the death toll being 9, the death toll probably would have been 100. They would have been in cars, on the second floor of their house playing video games. They have no. In fact, I drove all the way down there to apologize to the school superintendent on behalf of these media morons that came down there and did a horrible job with that story. But that in itself, it's scared that they heard, NBC and CBS and all these networks said, you got to send kids home. So that's when it started, was in 2007. So, but again, for some systems where there's not a lot of mobile homes, maybe it's a good decision. Every system is different. And those guys are like us. They're in a no-win situation, the superintendents. But Troy, I agree, for most systems, if nothing else, leave some of the buildings open for kids to stay that have nowhere else to go. And by the way, I got to slip away for a 9:30 TV cut in here.
Bill, let's get James to critique the opera sometime.
I think that would be worthwhile.
You could do that, Bill, please. Thank you.
Maybe one of these.
By the way, I've got to do a quick TV cut in, so I'll be back here in a couple of minutes. We'll roll the email and the recorded segments. I'll be back.
All right, we'll look for you, boss. So, how strong are the memories of April 27, 2011 in Northeast Mississippi?
Certainly for the folks who were directly impacted, it's pretty strong. I would say for most folks in East Mississippi, West Alabama, it's still a very strong memory. It was funny. I was thinking about today's date, April 8th, being a huge anniversary in Central Alabama, and I tend to think at this point that's starting to fade from some people's memories just because of April 27th being that day that people remember now.
Well, even April 28th, 2014, we had Tupelo got hit and Louisville got hit, and even Columbus had some tornado damage. So there's all of these days that keep happening where it's another event, another big damaging event that comes along here. But I still think that April 27th stands out. And a lot of that has to do kind of back to the school talk, is a lot of our school districts now, and I might mention some that sound familiar, East Webster, Smithville, Tupelo, those schools are building the tornado domes, the severe weather domes in their school buildings. And so keeping kids safe there, and that kind of, I think, helps to address, you have to send the kids home. They're safe in those concrete bunkers.
Well, let me ask y'all a question on as far as Columbus is concerned in that day. Does the city of Columbus or the county have shelters around Columbus? Were there people that went to those shelters, or are there any type of shelters around the city of Columbus for people to go to?
I'm pretty certain that Lowndes and Oktibbeha counties, which are two of our most populated counties in our DMA, they do not have public storm shelters. There are a few counties that are. I know Louisville, Mississippi, that got hit hard back in 2014. They actually just finished constructing their public storm shelter, another one of the dome type like Jacob was mentioning. But I'm pretty sure that Lowndes and Oktibbeha do not have.
Oktibbeha is building one. Right now, they're in the process of trying to finish it up. Lowndes County doesn't have one.
Lowndes has opened a few
larger. Are these larger shelters for 1,000 people, or are these smaller ones?
The one in Louisville and the one in Starkville in Oktibbeha County, those are both pretty sizable shelters. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it was interesting because, and I'll give a shout out to Ricky Gibbons. Ricky is the emergency management coordinator up in Alcorn County, up in Corinth, and had the chance when I was down for y'all's conference to visit with Ricky a little bit. I went by and saw him up there. And one thing they started doing is putting these small 25, 30, 40 person concrete bunker shelters from a company up in Tennessee, I think. And what they're doing is place them at churches, at volunteer fire departments around the area, but they only can hold a few, 25, 30 people. But what they find is they're not vandalized because they're at churches and volunteer fire departments. And I asked Ricky, in the county, what's the furthest distance that in Alcorn County anyway, that these shelters are from people? And he said 4 or 5 miles, really, at the most. They're shelters, these smaller shelters. And I just kind of wondered where that was going. I kind of was impressed by what Ricky's doing up there in Northeast Mississippi.
we have a number of counties that are actually doing that. And we actually, every August, one of my jobs is to email all the EMA directors and find the list of shelters. And so we see counties are updating them. I know Lee County has a number of shelters. There's a number of shelters in our West Alabama counties. So there are places that are doing that and finding tremendous success from those types of shelters. In fact, thinking back, and Alex, you might have to help me remember, when Palmetto got hit by the tornado, there was a shelter that was directly impacted and hit.
Yeah.
People were safe inside there.
Yeah, it's at the Palmetto Volunteer Fire Department. That's in Pickens County, north of Reform.
That's right. Yeah.
We're getting kind of deep into West Alabama geography there, but there was a tornado. It was the remnants of Hurricane Harvey were moving through, and actually for remnants of a hurricane, a fairly sizable, fairly strong tornado. I believe it was an EF2. Went through Pickens County, and several people sought shelter in that shelter, in that storm shelter, an underground shelter, and tornado went directly over them. We ran a severe weather special this past year, and one of the things that I showed in my segment was some cell phone video from inside, and you could hear like tree branches and stuff hitting the shelter with people inside, and they made it out they were fine. So I certainly would love to see in the future more shelters like that pop up in more communities, because I think they can really be a lifesaver in a very big way, especially in places where you've got a lot of people living in either mobile homes or in homes that don't really have adequate shelters, in places where the homes may be a lot older and not up to current codes. That's a great resource for the community to have. I think one of the problems that a lot of these communities end up facing, though, especially communities that are a little more rural and a little bit more poverty-stricken, is finding a way to pay for them.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to go to you apply for certain grants and try to get money to do it.
Well, I think that's the thing with the tornadoes in Alabama and then y'all storm, and then ended up, help me, Alex, that was Jackson gave that what, an EF3 in Columbus?
It was an EF3. It squeaked over in the EF3. It was 127 miles an hour.
Okay. And we had one direct fatality. I remember the young lady in a building.
Yes.
And then there was one after the fact, right?
There was one after the fact. So the one fatality that occurred during the tornado was actually at the EF3 damage marker. It was a sort of a partially brick building where all the outer walls had collapsed. Most of the interior walls had collapsed. It was not an incredibly well-built building, but it was well-built enough for them to get the EF3 damage marker. And unfortunately, that's where that young woman lost her life.
And the story on that was that her husband had been with her and had gone somewhere, right? And taken off before the storm and was supposed to come back or something, I believe. And that was before he got back. So,
yeah. And then the other sort of indirect fatality was an older gentleman was actually trying to be a good Samaritan. My understanding was trying to help someone fix their roof and fell off, which is always a tragic thing to hear. But those are the two fatalities that this tornado caused. I certainly we went, both myself and Jacob Dickey went and surveyed the damage the day after with the Weather Service in Jackson. They were kind enough to let us sort of tag along on their survey, and seeing that damage, I think you sort of can get this every time you go through some fairly significantly damaged areas, but you're thankful that it wasn't worse than it was, because there were certainly places where the damage was significant enough it could have probably caused more fatalities than it did. But hopefully enough folks heeded the warnings and got in a safe place. And I think that did happen.
What was the lead time, guys, on that from WFO Jackson? What was the lead time on that warning?
They issued tornado warning at 4:55. And the tornado hit Columbus at about 5:15, I believe.
Okay. I was thinking about 20 minutes. Yeah, it was good lead time.
It was good lead time.
Good.
So you guys are following the manufactured housing, mobile home, tornado sheltering debate. Do you guys speak directly to your communities that live in manufactured housing ever directly?
anytime I get the opportunity to speak with anyone about tornado safety, one of the questions I ask them is, do you live in a mobile home or a manufactured home? And if so, where do you go? And I would say most of the time we do get an answer of, I go to another location. Sometimes, probably the worst thing I hear is, well, I go get in my bathroom. And I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not going to help you. So the biggest place I do that is school talks. Anytime I get an opportunity to do one, because I tend to think that's a really good place to do it. Not only because you get the kids involved, but the kids are going to talk to their parents about that, and hopefully that gets the parents more interested in trying to do something too.
And the whole thing, guys, I mean, the whole thing is just to simply have a plan. I don't think people understand that. What they need to, that's as far as a fire is concerned. That's as far as a tornado is concerned. That's you've just got to have a plan. 2:30 in the morning, when you have 3 minutes, is not a good time, to try to make up a plan. So
absolutely.
And I think Alabama this morning kind of saw that with that one little warning. It was 5:45 or 5:15 or whatever. Sirens aren't going to wake you up at that point. So.
Yep.
Now, speaking of sirens, I know that's always an interesting topic to talk about. This was I guess it was this past week when we had the national tornado drill, and one of the meteorologists in Montgomery, Josh Johnson, put some video on his Facebook page, and I thought this was really good and really impactful. He just ran his cell phone and hit record and put it on his pillow in his bedroom as the sirens were going off. And you heard very faintly, you could barely hear that siren. And he said, if that's not going to wake you up, then you can't rely on a siren. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool. And that may be something I end up trying to do next time I know they've got a siren test. Although in my apartment, it wouldn't really work because sirens are pretty loud where I am. But maybe I have to find somewhere they're not as loud.
I know one of the big issues here in the South is that it's a region that I like to call the Bible Belt. So whenever we get these warnings late at night, and they start moving through, a lot of people have the mindset and the idea, which is not a good one to have, that if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And a lot of people would rather die in their sleep, and that's terrible to say, but they'd rather not know what's coming for them than have to deal with the fear of the fact that they could potentially be hit by that storm. And I've actually had a couple of people tell me that, like we see these memes and these different cartoons on social media saying, you get the tornado warning at 3 a.m., you just roll back over and go back to sleep. But it's a scary, realistic thing that happens here. People are just, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And I think that's where we really need to focus our attention about trying to change that.
I agree with that.
One of those myths that gets passed down from, just the tradition of stories. Are there any others that y'all run into up there in Northeast Mississippi, Northwest Alabama that you occasionally have to kind of shake your head at and fight the myth a little bit?
Every Bill bubble. I would say every town, every city, every neighborhood has a bubble. Every single last one. It's amazing to me, with the exception of a few places that have been recently hit by tornadoes. I know I grew up, as you said, in Childersburg, and I had heard folks in Childersburg and the neighbor community of Sylacauga. My entire life, we've got those mountains there. We don't get hit by tornadoes. Well, I went back and did a little research. Sylacauga got hit by a bad tornado.
1932.
But there aren't that many people still around in Childersburg, Sylacauga from 1932. They don't remember it. And I'll tell them, well, actually, back. And so I that's going to be sort of a project I'm going to try and take on this summer when the weather calms down a little bit, is go back, way back through tornado climatology and find some of these towns where we've heard, well, we don't ever get tornadoes because of whatever geographic feature or whatever bubble, and go, well, actually, you do. And here's when they occurred.
Well, if y'all remember the tornado in Joplin, Missouri, one of the common things talked about in Joplin was the fact that Joplin is somewhat up on a plateau, and tornadoes don't go up on the plateau. Well, you want to make a bet on that, and you find that out on a Sunday afternoon at 5:45. Really.
So this weather history stuff does have an important role in what we're doing, Aubrey.
Yes, it does.
And let me call a timeout real quick, because I'm back. I hate to interrupt the flow here, but Aubrey, can you do email right now?
Sure.
Well,
okay. Hey.
when we come back, I've actually got the chief here. I don't know if you want to cut it now.
There he is.
Yeah, let me get the stuff in real quick because I've got to do some cut-ins here. The minute I'm through, you guys can have it. So give us one quick second here. We're going to roll Tony Rice and the astronomy report. We're going to come back with the email inbox. We'll do picks of the week and weather roundup and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
This week, the International Space Station's orbit brings it over much of North America during the hours after sunset, making it easier to see and at a more convenient time. Early in the week, you may be able to catch it around 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and then around 90 minutes later as it orbits back around again. Other parts of the country will have good opportunities to see the station as well. Check spotthestation.nasa.gov for the times to look for in your neighborhood. Tuesday's a particularly good night, as one of those passes, for some parts of the country, will take the station's path very close to the Moon and Mars. And about the Moon and Mars, Tuesday evening they'll be just 5 degrees apart after sunset, making them very easy to find. If you're more of a morning person, about an hour before sunrise, look for Venus and Mercury. Venus is very bright this week and hard to miss even through the morning twilight. If you look just 5 degrees away, you'll find Mercury. Mercury's more challenging to see because it's normally lost in the sun's glare, but this week it reaches the point of greatest elongation, which provides the necessary separation between it and the sun for us to make out the tiny planet in the sky. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right, I just have a couple. This one just came in hot off the press from Shamar Davis about school districts during Dixie Alley outbreak days. You can't get everything right during a major severe weather day. April 15, 2011, which was the largest outbreak in Alabama before the April 27th. Canceling school was justified that day, considering multiple tornadoes hit some of the same areas. Marengo County was hit multiple times, and some fatalities did occur there. Shamar is from South Carolina, so not too familiar with the Alabama geography too well, but believe one was in Octagon, south of Myrtlewood, with an EF3 tornado. So thank you for sending that in, Shamar. We appreciate that. Here's an interesting one from David Flicks in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The last couple of days, one of our local NBC affiliates' websites has had headlines warning that severe thunderstorms were likely, when in fact the SPC has had us in the marginal and then the slight risk category. The headlines changed later in the morning, apparently after the weather staff at the station corrected the headline writers. My fear is that this crying wolf by web editors who do not understand the nuance of the SPC categories will undermine the public's confidence in what is being presented by local media. Any thoughts on this? And do our stations do anything to keep the web editors from doing this? And I feel like this, and maybe this was a dream I had, because sometimes things like this happen, but I feel like I saw this recently. Maybe it was on Twitter. I don't know, but I could also be just talking crazy. But my state, I mean, personally at my station, they're all very good with checking on things. Yeah. It was the tornado, the scud cloud that one of the Tennessee stations had tweeted out yesterday, and it came from the news station, and they tweeted it out saying, funnel cloud reported, and one of the meteorologists came back and said, or it could be scud. And it sounded, I believe they were from the same station, and it sounded like whoever was tweeting out had not checked with the meteorologist. That's what it was. Yeah. I'm not crazy.
And I also wonder if it's this code red, emergency, first warn, storm warn. Really, I mean, it's you know, and I'm not blaming any weather person for this. This is a whole different set of circumstances here.
We have it.
I don't know.
First alert weather days.
I think most big television groups in the country do that, and quite frankly, I think my company does that. We don't do it here. Yeah, I get away with murder. I get away with some weird stuff. I mean, I'm an anomaly. But I think all of the major television operators in the country are mandating their weather people declare, super duper, DEFCON 5 weather days when there's anything other than a bright sunny day. And
well, James, I mean, but this is what, to me, and I've been through this for a while, you have too. This is exactly what happened back years ago when the TV station started doing the same thing with news. I won't say the word I'd like to say, but when they started out the news, and they finally got where people saw it was so sensationalistic, and then finally they came over to the weather departments and started doing it. And that came after they had kind of destroyed the newsrooms in a way. And now they're over there in the weather department, and that always worried me.
Yeah, come on. Breaking news, can of Hawaiian Punch stolen from local 7-Eleven. Yep. Everything is breaking news. It's developing. And all the sound effects that go with it. And, I guess it's creeped over into weather. And I don't know what we can do about it. We don't own these stations. We all have a responsibility to do what we're told to do.
Yep.
A fiduciary responsibility to maximize the profits of the shareholders. That's why they pay us. And, we have to do what we have to do. But at the same time, maybe we can, in a constructive way, suggest that you're going to kill this thing off. I mean, we're all that you've got left is weather. People still watch television for weather. They watch tornado coverage on television. They will even watch us on non-tornado days if we tell a good story and we have compelling content. But if you're going to do this stuff, it's just going to kill it off, and you can't do that. So maybe we ought to get a consultant, Bill, on this show. We ought to get some consultant from Frank Magid, Larry Rickel, ARD, if they still even are in existence. I don't even know who the big consultants are anymore. We ought to get them on this show one night.
They're not going to come on this show.
Sound like versions of bourbon or something.
Yeah. And having said that, guys, I hate to go, but I got to do another cut-in or two, and I got to do the lead story in here. So I'll hang up and I'll listen later.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, James.
See you, James.
Jacob Dickey, if you've got Keith there with you, can he speak for a minute?
Oh, hey.
Hey, how are you? You got a little weather in the area tonight, huh?
Yeah, sorry about that. Nature of the beast. But yeah, we got sucked into some hailstorms, and then we had our 9 o'clock show, and by the grace of God, we had no tornado warnings because we have the final championship game on TV tonight. So we dodged that bullet.
Yeah, I was not envious of anybody who was going to have to deal with tornado warnings tonight. Fortunately, we've been fairly lucky nationally. How'd you get it to Columbus, Mississippi, Keith?
Well, I came here for the job. I got this random email. Do you want to come work here? And so I came. and basically, I was working out in the Dakotas for the first part of my career, and I was kind of tired of the blizzards. And here's a side note. My last TV station, Rapid City, South Dakota, we were on a mountaintop, and we looked over the city, a beautiful setting. But when we got winter storms, like they were about ready to get a winter storm up there, the TV station gets trapped. And I basically was trapped there a couple of times for a couple of days. And I got to the point now where it's just like, man, I'd rather trade blizzards for tornadoes any day. So that's why I'm here.
Well, you put together a pretty good team there. Keith, can you claim credit for this bunch of professional young men that you've assembled there, or is that the news director?
No. Well, actually, I give credit to management here. They give me significant influence as to who we bring on here. I have a lot of input as far as what happens here. And going back to your discussion recently about those code red weather days and whatnot, I work for a great company that we can basically do whatever we want here at WCBI. And, my news director is great. And as long as we tell a good story and don't do anything crazy, we can show stuff that other consultants would probably just freak out about. And so everybody gets along here, and, we do well with our coverage, I think.
Yeah, Keith, you and I have both shown a skew T on television before, haven't we?
Well, we have.
I think you've got a weather savvy audience there, sort of like we do in Central Alabama, and I think they can understand more than a lot of the consultants give them credit for.
Yeah, I think people understand. I think a lot of people, though, tend to have tornado and storm fatigue here. So I just don't even like even saying tornado unless I have to, just because people start to freak out about it. but we just have had so many events, and I can understand it. So it's a little bit different of an animal from where I was working before, but it's all relative where you live.
Talk about the Louisville tornado back in 2014 for a second, Keith. You were there for that, and it influenced you.
Yeah, I mean, that was going back. I can't believe it's 5 years ago this month. It's hard to believe, but that was the busiest day of my career to that point. And we went into it days before. I remember I talked to my news management and our news team, I think the Thursday before, because it was a Monday. And they said, hey, watch this on Monday. It's something that we have to be concerned about. And then we got into the event that day. And once the storm started to fire, I mean, it just kind of snowballed. The tornado moved through Tupelo, and then we had our Columbus event, or the Louisville storm that came up towards Columbus. And I don't know if you discussed about our going to the basement here earlier in the show. Did I miss that? I don't know if you talked about it or not.
Yeah, we talked about that extensively.
Okay, so that was the first day since I worked here that we went to the basement. We've gone to the basement 4 times in 7 years here. That was the first. The last was this last event, but it was a big event. I think it was the biggest tornado I've ever covered. Fatalities. It was just a big, horrendous event.
So you were on air the day.
Yeah, we were on air, and here's a story that people don't seem to remember is that the Tupelo tornado happened about 2:30, and then an hour later we had the Louisville storm. But the Tupelo tornado took out the DirecTV and Dish Network uplink for the local affiliates. So we didn't know this, but after that, apparently all of the local channels here in this market were off satellite. And we were still broadcasting over the air, but a lot of people in Louisville and Winston County, they couldn't get us. And, I just tell people to this day, make sure you have a digital antenna because you can still pick us up. Yep. But the Louisville storm was very well warned, well out ahead. So we still had fatalities, but it could have been a lot worse.
And you still got Jacob Dickey there with you, Keith? Is he?
Yeah, he's right here.
Talk?
Yeah.
Can he hear us?
Do you want to chime in? Yeah.
Jacob, some of your graduate research deals with communicating to people in different socioeconomic groups. Talk about that for a minute. Give us some of your findings, your things you're learning.
Sure. So one of the things I'm working on with my grad research, and I'll be honest, I've actually had some of the things come up, work here, and probably haven't followed through with it to the finished end game as I need to. But what we're looking at is trying to survey people in Mississippi and Alabama, and I've got I think over 3,000 respondents so far, and we're still looking at ways to collect more. Is try and find from socioeconomic levels, home types, location, race, other factors like that, and then see how their tornado knowledge is. Do they know what do they know the safe? Do they know what to do to stay safe in a tornado warning? Do they know what a tornado watch means? All of those different factors. And if we can identify that this socioeconomic group does not understand with the proper techniques, the other component of this is then looking at ways that they get their media. So are they using social media the most? Are they on TV? Is it radio? What are the media that they get information from, and trying to connect that. Early on, we found out there was I guess I call it a suspicious path to follow with the Hispanic and Latino communities. And here in the South, they are very underserved. There's not a lot of media for them to get information from. In fact, Birmingham, I think it's still this way, was the largest market that doesn't have a Spanish-speaking station. And if James is here, he could correct me on that, but there's no Spanish-speaking station in our market here. We still got a population of 4 or 5%, which is a fairly big chunk of population. It's our third highest race that we have in this area. So there's some good things that'll hopefully come out of it, and finding out things and whatnot. Still working on getting some more data and whatnot collected in that. And this summer is going to have a lot of free time for me to do that here. But I kind of figured I'm excited to see how it turns out, and there's going to be some good stuff, I think.
So Troy Kimmel, if you were going to have a cooking segment on your weather show, what would you call it?
You've just totally called. I'd have no answer to that.
I think I'd call it Cooking Up a Storm.
There you go.
Jacob, was that your idea?
That was.
Yeah, so I got a cooking segment, and that story goes, I tweeted something about how it was soup weather, and the executive producer here, MC, she saw it and said, "Do you want to come cook?" And in my mind, we came and cooked, and it was really great, and I saw an opportunity to get a free meal once a week on the station. And so every week now,
anything to make ends meet on a
that's
meteorologist
exactly
salary.
right. And so we cook a lot of different things, and I'll tell you what, that segment has actually done wonders for me in reaching an audience that I don't reach or would not traditionally reach. It's brought out a different side of me, and I've had a lot of success with that on social media, and people saying, "Oh, I love that recipe." And not only the Cooking Up a Storm, we're looking at the possibility here in the next year or so, starting to send me out to local restaurants. If you know the book book, and now that I'm trying to think of it here, it's about the tornado outbreak back in 2011. The gal from, I think, New York Times came down and wrote it, What Stands in a Storm.
Right.
There was a line in that book that said, "Food is love." And I really think that's the truth around here. The South really thrives on food and connects on that. And so by going to these small town restaurants and having a cooking show, I'm able to connect with people on a way outside of weather. And I think that's something that's been really successful for me here. And I think for a lot of broadcast meteorologists, there's a potential to find that thing that you can connect with viewers. So yeah, Cooking Up a Storm, it's great. I've not been able to do steak. The management declined that, but we get some good meals out of that and feed production and have a good time. And it's a sponsored segment too. So I think Upstairs is happy that they're pulling in some dollars for that too. So
yeah, I can't say that they would let me cook on air. That's for sure.
Yeah, we don't make too big of a mess, but
but that is pretty interesting. And talk about your Weather in the Classroom nonprofit. That's interesting too.
Yeah, sure. I actually have pulled it off right now and taken it down a little bit, revamping how we're doing that. And a lot of that's just been my experience here at the station and what I thought it was and what it really is, and seeing that. The goal is to build curriculum that schools can use. And I actually student taught in my undergrad. I student taught high school science, high school agricultural science. And so I had a big experience with different types of curriculum there. If we can take a curriculum and give it to teachers, and it's videos and what we call an e-curriculum or a flipped curriculum, where local meteorologists are delivering that, or even meteorologists one type, they are the content experts, can get that correct information into the schools. But one thing that we've really pushed here at the station, we're having talks about what it looks like, and what we can do is, as a nonprofit, we can actually fundraise following and support other nonprofits. So kind of the vision that we're working on now, and I don't know if this is an industry secret I'm letting out, but is if we can immediately fundraise with the nonprofit and give that money 100% to local areas of disaster and collect that through the TV station, there's a huge opportunity there for viewers who are tuned in and following and seeing, oh, town XYZ just got hit. Immediately after the storm, we activate that, and people can go online in the moment. They're emotionally tied to that event, seeing the devastation. Hey, you can donate 100% of that money collected through our station's fundraiser is going to that. I think that's a huge way to help with disaster relief and support local schools and people who are affected. So we're kind of reframing it, restructuring it, and the name may change just a little bit, but that's another big project that I'm working on. That was one of the projects that kind of focused a little more on instead of my thesis. But Mom's been harping me. She says, "Get that thesis done," and so I probably need to work on that first.
Yes.
So Alex Puckett, it sounds like Jacob's got a lot of irons in the fire over there in Northeast Mississippi. Talk about your hurricane chasing for a second, Alex.
Well, I have been in one hurricane. That was Irene. I know Jacob's been in a couple more recently. I was in Irene. What year is that? Was that 2011, 2012? Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
2011. And that was thankfully a weaker storm. I've sort of come to the conclusion after watching some of these more recent hurricane seasons, I don't really know that I want to do much more in the way of hurricane chasing. I'll stick to if I get the chance to go out and chase supercells, I'll go do that somewhere where I can see them. But as far as hurricanes go, I'm not.
Count me out.
I know both the Jacobs, I think, have chased hurricanes at one point or another.
Yeah, Alex got mad
So Jacob Riley, talk about your hurricane experience.
Oh, I actually haven't chased any hurricanes. I'm not that brave. I can get away from a tornado if I need to. Once you get in that hurricane, you're kind of stuck. So I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, you're kind of in the mess with those.
My wife wouldn't be too happy about that. So
exactly. Jacob Dickey, any hurricane chase experience?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I got no
I
girlfriend.
think we've lost the audio.
You need to flip the mic down, Jacob.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we've lost your audio.
Huh.
Oh, darn it. But Troy Kimmel, maybe we'll do a little weather roundup real quick.
Hello.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Coming through loud and clear.
Yeah,
talk about hurricane chase experience.
Perfect, yeah.
Before we do the weather roundup.
I'm lucky where I don't have a girlfriend. Mom and dad are supportive, and I can get away from things and whatnot. I actually went with my dad down to Hurricane Michael, and we were on the way. We made the decision, and this was something I know Alex will feel very happy about because he's always checking me. Hey, be safe out there. We made the decision to stay in Marianna, Florida on I-10, and it was it came to us. We had a safe spot. We had everything lined up. We had an escape route and enough supplies, and still tornado chasing. You see the tornado, you are in the hurricane. That's a totally different thing. And in Marianna, the winds were still 120, 130 mile an hour gusts doing damage. The building that we were sheltered at started to lose the roof, and my dad was with me. I kind of knew the eye was coming, and I was fingers crossed we get the eye in before the roof totally went. But my dad afterwards, he's like, I thought I was going to die. I was like, I think we were going to make it. But I think the one thing too is everyone talks about with the hurricanes is where the worst damage is. Oh, Panama City or back to Katrina, New Orleans. They're still suffering in Southwest Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida, and even on the Mississippi Gulf Coast from Katrina. Those areas are still recovering from the effects of that storm over a decade ago. But yeah, I had that chance. I also had the chance to go after Florence to our sister station in Wilmington, and that was a flooding event. And flying in for that one, I think both of those events, as well as with the Columbus tornado, the Tupelo tornado in November, the EF2 there, have just kind of humbled me and made me realize that what I say on TV matters and people are listening. So you don't root for those type of events, but I'm really thankful I got those experiences to at least know why our jobs are important. And I think it's something for a lot of meteorologists, doing it safely. That's something that you can learn so much from.
Yeah, and that experience is so important as you're relating events in the future to others. That's really true. Troy, what's going on in Austin, Texas? Anything in the weather interesting out your way?
We were, I think we were Camp Mabry up to 90 or up to 89 degrees today. 89 at Camp Mabry, 88 degrees out at the old Air Force Base out at Austin Bergstrom International Airport. And right now it's clear. We got a light north wind and the temperature 65.4. So come on down, nice evening here. And gosh, guys, really glad to have y'all with us from Columbus tonight. Really, I've been really waiting for this to be able to talk to you about that event. I think that was, I think you did a great job. So, you know what? I'll make them my pick of the week. I don't have.
I love it.
But I'm telling you, they did a good job. And thanks for being with us tonight, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Aubrey, can you talk or are you tied up?
Yeah, they just said 3 minutes. So
perfect. Pick of the week and any interesting weather going on in Harrisonburg.
I forgot I don't have a pick of the week.
Foghorn for Aubrey.
No, awesome show, guys. I know, Troy. So we hit 76 degrees today. So it was beautiful out. So we're at 61. So I'm catching up to you, Troy. Not Texas weather yet, but we're getting close.
Yeah, it's not Austin Bergstrom weather yet, but you're getting there.
You know what? We've had some pretty nice days here. Tomorrow's going to be another nice day, and yeah, we're enjoying it here.
All right. Well, picks of the week, Alex Puckett, you got one for us?
Yeah, kind of. There's a great Forbes article. I don't think it's particularly new, but I'll throw it out there about why it was a Forbes, and they sort of dove into the data about local television and why it's still important. And virtually every market, weather is the number one reason why people tune in still. So that's my pick of the week, I suppose.
The station management, be nice to your meteorologist.
That's right.
The lesson there. How about you, Nick? You got a pick of the week for us?
Yeah, I just put the link in the comments. I don't know if someone can see that. I picked a tweet from Josh Johnson that came out today, and we were kind of talking today about SBC risk. Do people understand that? And he put this new thing out, which I think is a really good conversation piece, and I think it's a step in a direction that is really helpful. And his tweet talks a lot about the severe weather risk level. So, we talk about marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, high. His goes very low, low, medium, and high, and there's an explanation there. And that might not work in every market, but I thought it was a really cool thing, and especially given what his station has covered with the Beauregard tornado, just hats off to what they're doing down there. I know a lot of meteorologists are watching and ready to take things, including myself. It's really cool to see that. So we're going to have some conversations here, I think, about what we can do to better outline those threat risks for our viewers, because we still get those questions. What's slight mean? What's marginal mean? And things of that. But yeah, I really like that tweet today.
So you probably watched some of Josh's coverage on that Sunday when the Lee County tornadoes happened. Tom, could you comment on anything you thought about what he did exceptionally well that day, Jake?
Me?
Yeah. If you got to watch any of his coverage, because I watched it and I was fascinated at how good it was and how he married technology and the information he was conveying.
Yeah, we were actually a little worried. A couple of days before, the SBC had that day, I think it was day 4 risk in our area, and it kind of got massaged south and east. So we were worried severe weather in our area. And I was working that day watching, and when you see the signature like that pop up, and even still, the storm was, I think it was, before it had touched down, before it moved into Lee County, it was starting to wrap up a bit. He just handled it very well. And I think for me, it was the calming voice that he had, but the authoritative voice at the same time, and how he was connecting with viewers. And there's one line which I remember. He says, I think it was, your life may be in danger. Then he corrects himself, your life is in danger, and to highlight the seriousness of that. And it to me was a very good job, a very good blend that I think all meteorologists can strive to have, of not scaring people, being firm, but also being calm and assuring at the same time. Because for most tornadoes, 99% of the tornadoes out there, as long as people take some sort of action and the correct action, they're going to be okay. Occasionally we get those EF5s that come on through, but for most of them, as long as they're moving from their mobile home to a safe place, they'll make it through okay. And I just think that their coverage was exceptional. They do a lot of sky cams and field coverage and whatnot. So yeah, something really to watch it, and I guess mimic for a lot of stations.
Yeah, that's good advice, because you have to keep your head in these situations, and we're a lot of times the key to that happening. All right, Jacob Riley, got a pick of the week for us before we wrap up?
I got a pick of the week. I don't have a link in the comments or anything, but Brad Panovich out of North and South Carolina, he tweeted out a picture today. It's kind of on a lighter note compared to what everyone else's pick of the week has been, but just the thunderstorms that they had move through today. He said they had a pollen haboob, and just to see that kind of move through is kind of crazy. It just made me sneeze and my eyes start watering. But
yeah, we came back from Ireland. Our screened-in porch had been infiltrated by the pollen, and it had been captured. So I spent the better part of yesterday squirting off my own version of the pollen haboob for sure. Troy, anything you want to add before we adjourn? I know you're going to turn to a pumpkin here in a minute or two.
Yeah, I am. Got radio first thing in the morning, but good show tonight, and hope everybody has a great week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining. It's been a fantastic time. Really want to congratulate you on your work and your professionalism. You guys are a real credit to the industry. But WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast all about weather. We do this on Monday nights generally, and we have been doing it for about 13 years now. So after all these years, it's still just as fun as it was the first night we sat down to do it. But until next week, when our guest will be one of the good consultants, Tim Heller, with Heller Weather. I'm Bill Murray for the whole WeatherBrains gang. I'll remind you to keep an eye to the sky, because you'll always have something fun to look at. Bye, guys.
See you later. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank y'all for doing it. Glad we had y'all.
Bye-bye.
severe right now. I'd say the odds of any tornado problem very low tonight. I know we had a couple early this morning. In fact, we just wrapped up WeatherBrains. This is that magical time where we've got, ooh, look at this. We got the basketball game going on here. Wow. We can't be showing that. All right. So first off, let's say goodbye to our WeatherBrains friends. Thank you guys. Great episode tonight on WeatherBrains. We're broadcasting live on Instagram. My Instagram feed, SpanWX, and the WeatherBrains feed. We're going to kill WeatherBrains. The show is over. Great show. I missed some of it tonight because I had to go do some weather, so I'll sit back and listen to that tomorrow on the drive down to South Alabama to school. So WeatherBrains fans, thank you guys for listening. Have a great week.